The human brain is wired to assume sudden chaos will resolve quickly. It is an instinct called the normalcy bias. When the grid fails, the first 60 minutes represent a critical decision-making window, a period where inaction or delay leaves you standing directly in the path of the coming panic. In an urban collapse, the primary threats are psychological. Extreme stress triggers a cascade of panicked decisions that compromise safety before physical resources ever run out. Surviving the initial phase of a systemic collapse is strictly a timing problem. The decisions executed in the first hour establish the survival trajectory for the entirety of the crisis. The protocols must be sequenced down to the minute. Because the mind fractures at the onset of chaos, relying on instinct is a death sentence. Executing a rigid, pre-planned protocol provides the only reliable baseline for survival. The clock has started. At the exact moment a disaster strikes, adrenaline floods the system. The mammalian instinct screams for immediate kinetic motion, urging you to flee blindly. Running without a plan frequently leads directly into falling debris, fire, or lethal choke points. If you are not in immediate danger from falling structures or fire, you must execute a hard cognitive override. Take your pack off, place it on the ground, sit on it, and do absolutely nothing for 120 seconds. This forced pause allows your analytical mind to boot up. You use this stationary time to map the structural damage around you and identify primary threat vectors before expending a single calorie of energy. During this window, power down your cellular device immediately to preserve the battery for localized mesh networks later. You must also resist the urge to use lighters or matches. The primary secondary hazard in urban disasters is compromised subterranean gas infrastructure. Forcing your body to remain stationary breaks the panic loop. It gives you the operational reality required to establish a clear, actionable plan while the rest of the population is still reacting blindly. In a densely populated area, the most immediate kinetic threat is the mass migration of panicked civilians. When density reaches 6 people per square meter, the crowd becomes a fluid mass governed entirely by wave physics. The physical mass of the crowd exerts enough lateral pressure to shatter the human ribcage, preventing the lungs from expanding while standing upright. The primary mechanism of death in a crowd crush is rarely trampling, it is compressive asphyxiation. This diagram outlines the proper physiological defense. If you feel physical contact on both shoulders simultaneously, centimeter breathing gap for your lungs. Never bend down to retrieve dropped gear. A fallen backpack is a terminal tripwire. And never push back against the wave, which creates a localized shock wave rebounding with multiplied force. Move fluidly with the surge, angling diagonally toward the periphery, while aggressively avoiding walls and barricades where pressure peaks. Understanding the physics of crowd movement removes the illusion of unpredictable mass panic. It turns a chaotic riot into a manageable, navigable physical obstacle you can successfully bypass. Once immediate kinetic threats are bypassed, the survival protocol shifts entirely to resource acquisition. When the electrical grid fails, the massive pumps maintaining municipal water pressure cease. The water residing in the pipes drains to the lowest elevation point in less than 10 minutes. You do not have hours to fill your bathtub, you have minutes. In dense environments, gravity-fed overhead tanks on the roofs of multi-story structures act as massive temporary reservoirs. This schematic details the gravity extraction protocol. You extract this water using the physics of a siphon. By submerging a heavy rubber hose to completely purge atmospheric air, capping the end, and pulling it down to a lower elevation, you utilize gravity to move thousands of gallons without a single electrical pump. In a prolonged siege, commercial fire sprinkler lines offer a desperate secondary source. This stagnant water contains iron oxide and anaerobic bacteria. It requires aggressive purification through a submicron ceramic filter to prevent terminal gastrointestinal disease. Extracting and securing your own sterile water supply within the first 2 hours is non-negotiable. It entirely eliminates reliance on the corruptible, predatory external distribution networks that rapidly form during a crisis. Moving into the 6th hour, the protocol shifts indoors. The first step of securing a structure is not barricading the door. It is defensive severance. You must aggressively shut off the main electrical breaker and the municipal gas line. By severing these utility inputs, you remove the potential for spontaneous ignition. When the grid surges back to life, compromised wiring and ruptured gas lines can ignite localized firestorms that emergency services cannot suppress. As night falls, the requirement for absolute emission control becomes strict. You enforce total light discipline by hermetically sealing windows with blackout materials like heavy plastic sheeting and duct tape. In a totally dark environment, the rattling noise of a gas-powered generator broadcasts your location to every desperate individual within a 2-mile radius. Power generation must transition to silent, emission-free systems such as high-capacity solar generators to maintain critical medical and communication gear. This inventory highlights the asymmetric medical audit. Survival requires prioritizing severe trauma gear, like combat tourniquets and hemostatic wound-packing gauze, to prevent rapid exsanguination. Equally vital are pest control measures, like liquid permethrin, to stop microscopic threats and blood-borne pathogens that decimate localized populations without municipal sanitation. Operating in total silence, absolute darkness, and strict sanitation reduces your audible and luminous signatures to zero. You make your stronghold appear as a hollow, abandoned shell, successfully bypassing predatory threats throughout the night. The culmination of the 24-hour protocol arrives with dawn. You use the morning light to analyze the intelligence gathered overnight from silent amateur radio monitoring and direct external observations. You must now make the ultimate strategic choice: hold the line or evacuate. The criteria are strictly objective. You only abandon your stronghold if it is directly compromised by fire, imminent structural collapse, or organized unrest moving into your sector. If the decision is to move, this is the required logistical loadout. The exit requires high-density, shelf-stable nutrition. Civilian meals ready to eat provide massive caloric density to sustain extreme physical exertion without the requirement of a fire or a thermal cooking signature. Abandoning a fortified structure to enter an unsecured environment exposes you to the elements and resource competition. The exodus is executed only when the hazards of your current location, such as approaching fire or direct violence, outweigh the severe risks of movement. When you leave, you sever the tether completely and move through the periphery as a ghost. The first 24 hours are a mechanical sequence of stabilization. You anchor the mind, bypass fluid crowd mass, aggressively siphon trapped municipal water, sever utility hazards, zero your signatures, and calculate the dawn decision. Navigating absolute systemic failure is a discipline of time management and resource allocation. It relies entirely on the precise, unyielding enforcement of these protocols. Mastering the first 24 hours secures the resources and position needed to address the more complex logistical failures of the days ahead.